The man she had shoved off the dance floor at her cousin's wedding was standing at the front of the boardroom, introducing himself as the new senior partner of her law firm. Zara pressed her heel into the carpet beneath the conference table and told herself to breathe. He hadn't seen her yet, or maybe he had and was choosing not to acknowledge it. She couldn't decide which was worse. 48 hours earlier, she had been in the banquet hall of the Chateau Laurier in Ottawa, watching her cousin Bet get married to the most patient man alive. Zara had been happy that night, genuinely happy, which was rare enough that she had noticed it and quietly filed it away. She was standing near the edge of the dance floor with a glass of sparkling water when she saw him, a tall man in a gray suit, leaning over a young woman who was visibly trying to back away. The woman was Lena, Betted's youngest bridesmaid, barely 22, and she had the look of someone who had been trying to end a conversation for 10 minutes and could not find the door. Zara set down her glass. She crossed the floor in 8 steps, placed one hand flat against the man's chest and pushed. Not violently, firmly. The kind of push that said this is over and I am not asking. He stumbled back 2 full steps, catching himself against the edge of a table. The champagne in his hand sloshed but didn't spill. He looked at her with an expression she recognized immediately. The look of a man who had never once in his adult life been physically redirected by a woman in a formal dress. "She's not interested," Zara said. "Go find somewhere else to stand." Lena slipped away behind her. The man opened his mouth. Zara had already turned around. She didn't look back. She didn't think about it again for the rest of the night. And now he was here, in the Rideau and Associates boardroom on the 14th floor, wearing a charcoal suit instead of gray. And he was explaining in a calm, measured voice that he was looking forward to building something exceptional with this team. His name was Callaway Reed. She would later learn that everyone called him Cal. Zara had spent 11 years building a reputation at Rideau and Associates that had nothing to do with being liked and everything to do with being right. She was 34, a senior associate in the corporate litigation division, and the kind of lawyer who got called at 11 at night when a deal was about to go sideways. She had grown up in Kingston, Ontario, the daughter of a Jamaican-Canadian mother who worked as a nurse and a father who drove long haul and was gone more weekends than he was home. She had learned early that no one was coming to carry her and had organized her entire life around that understanding. She was not, as her mother frequently pointed out, easy to love. "You don't let anyone close enough," her mother told her at least twice a year, usually from the kitchen of the house in Kingston where Zara had grown up, usually while making something that smelled like childhood. "You think walls are the same thing as strength." "They are," Zara always said. Her mother would sigh and hand her a cup of tea and change the subject. Neither of them ever won that argument. The thing about Zara's walls was that they had a very specific origin. She had watched her mother absorb years of a marriage that wasn't working, staying because leaving felt like failure, smiling at family dinners while her father was a ghost in the house. When her parents finally separated, Zara was 19, and her first feeling was relief. The second was a private, firm decision. She would never build a life around someone who might not stay. So she hadn't. She dated occasionally, never seriously. She was 34 and she had never once introduced a man to her parents. She told herself this was a choice and most days she believed it. What she hadn't accounted for was Callaway Reed walking into her firm and not firing her. The first time he called her into his office, she went in expecting the conversation to go one of 2 ways. Either he didn't remember her, which was fine, or he did remember her and was going to use whatever authority he had to make her professional life quietly difficult, which was less fine but survivable. He was sitting behind a desk that still had someone else's file labels on the drawers. He looked up when she walked in. "Zara Ose Mensa," he said. "Yes, I read your file last night." He leaned back. The Hartwell arbitration, the Duchamp case, 3 years of work that other firms would have staffed with double the people. She said nothing. "I also recognize you from Saturday night," he said. "For what it's worth, you were right. I should thank you." That was not what she had been expecting. She rearranged her face before he could see it. "Don't mention it," she said. "I'm going to be restructuring the litigation team," he said. "I want you to lead the Mercer file. It's going to be the largest commercial dispute this firm has touched in a decade. I'd like your read on it by Thursday." She took the file he slid across the desk. "Is that all?" she asked. "For now," he said, and went back to his papers. She was halfway down the hall before she realized her pulse was doing something it had no business doing. Zara told her closest colleague at the firm, a woman named Francine, who had been in family law for 15 years and had seen everything twice, none of this. Francine would have made it into something. Instead, Zara put her head down and worked, which was what she always did, which had always worked. The Mercer file was genuinely complex. A commercial landlord dispute layered over a breach of fiduciary duty claim that was going to require her to know more about commercial leasing law than she currently did. She spent 3 late nights in the office before Thursday, ordering the same pad thai from the same place on Elgin Street, drinking too much coffee, and occasionally noticing that the light under Cal's office door was still on at midnight. When she presented her analysis on Thursday morning, he listened without interrupting, which she wasn't used to. Most senior partners interrupted. They had a thought, and they needed you to know they had it. Cal let her finish. Then he asked 2 questions that made her realize he had understood everything she'd said, and had been thinking 2 steps ahead the entire time. She left his office feeling something she recognized. After a moment, as respect. After that, they fell into a working rhythm. He would ask for her read on something and she would give it. She would hit a wall on a file, and he would suggest an angle she hadn't considered. They didn't talk about anything outside of work. They didn't need to. She was not thinking about him in any other way. She was very clear on this with herself. The thing that started to shift the ground under her was small. It was a Tuesday in November. She had been in back-to-back meetings since 9 in the morning and had forgotten to eat and was standing at the elevator bank at 7 in the evening, feeling that specific kind of tired that settles behind your eyes. The elevator opened and Cal was in it. He looked at her, then past her at the empty office. "Have you eaten?" he said. "I'll get something on the way home." "That means no." He held the door. "There's a place around the corner. Come on, I don't need you to feed me." "I know you don't." He looked at her steadily. "I'm hungry. You're clearly running on air. It's 7 o'clock and neither of us has had a real meal. It's not a thing." She got in the elevator. It wasn't a thing, it was just dinner. They sat across from each other at a small Italian place on Spark Street, where the lighting was warm, and the noise level made it easy to talk without performing. She found out he was from Vancouver originally, that he had spent 6 years in Toronto before taking this posting, that he had an older sister who was an architect in Montreal and called him every Sunday without fail. He found out that she was from Kingston, that her mother was a nurse, that she had wanted to be a marine biologist until grade 10 when she discovered she was terrified of open water. "A maritime lawyer who's afraid of the ocean," he said. "I'm not a maritime lawyer. I'm a commercial litigator. Close enough." "It really isn't." He smiled. She looked at her pasta. She paid for her half. She made that very clear. He didn't argue, which she appreciated. On the walk back to the parking garage, it was cold the way Ottawa gets cold in November, which is a particular kind of cold that other cities don't fully understand, sharp and specific. She pulled her coat tighter. He didn't offer to take her arm or say anything about the temperature. He just matched her pace, and they walked side by side, and she thought, in spite of herself, that this was a comfortable thing to do with another person. She did not know what to do with that thought, so she set it down and left it there. December came. The Mercer file escalated again, and then produced a surprise counterclaim that required them to rebuild their entire approach 2 weeks before the preliminary hearing. Zara spent an entire Saturday at the office. Around 4 in the afternoon, Cal appeared with 2 coffees and sat down across from her, and they worked through the afternoon and into the evening, and somewhere around 9 o'clock she looked up from a contract and said, "I think we can use the indemnity clause." He looked up. Then he looked at the contract. Then he looked back at her. "That's it," he said. "That's exactly it." She felt the warmth of being seen by someone who understood what she was looking at. She told herself it was professional satisfaction. A week before Christmas, the firm held its annual holiday party at a venue in the Byward Market. Zara went because not going would have been conspicuous. She wore a dark burgundy dress and her good earrings and arrived at 7:15, so she could leave by 9 without it being obvious. She was talking to Francine near the bar when Francine's expression shifted in a way that meant someone had walked up behind Zara. "You look different outside the office," Cal said. "Everyone does," she said, turning. He was in a dark suit, without a tie, which for him was as casual as it got, and he was holding a whiskey and looking at her with something open in his face that he didn't usually let show at work. "Can I get you something?" he asked. "I'm fine." Francine found a reason to step away. Zara made a mental note to be annoyed about this later. They talked. It was easy in a way that work conversations weren't, because there was nothing to solve, no deadline, no structure. He told her about a terrible Christmas he'd had at 26 in a city where he didn't know anyone and had ordered pizza delivery on Christmas Eve because it was the only thing open. She told him about the year her dad had driven 18 hours straight to make it home for Christmas morning and had arrived at 5 a.m. and fallen asleep at the table before the presents were even opened. "Did you wake him up?" Cal asked. "We just let him sleep there," she said. "My mom put a blanket on him. We opened presents around him." "That's a good memory," he said. "Yeah," she said, surprised to find that she meant it. At some point they moved to a quieter corner of the room and she stopped tracking the time. When she finally checked her phone, it was nearly 11, and she had been intending to leave 2 hours ago. Outside, waiting for her car, the cold air was a small relief. Cal came out after her to get his coat from the attendant. "I'll share the cab," he said. "I have a ride." "Right." He stood beside her. "Zara." She looked at him. "I'd like to have dinner again," he said. "Not a working dinner. Just dinner." She knew she should say something easy and deflecting. She had a library of easy, deflecting things to say. She had been using them for 15 years without a single failure. "Let me think about it," she said instead. Her car arrived. She got in. Through the window, she saw him standing on the sidewalk with his hands in his coat pockets, and she looked away before he could see her watching. She spent 2 weeks thinking about it. She told herself she was being sensible. She was his direct report. There were professional dynamics to consider. She had a system that worked, and she had built it carefully, and there was no good reason to take it apart. She also thought about the way he had said her name, straightforwardly, without calculation, like it was just her name and he was just saying it. She agreed to dinner in January. They went to a Lebanese place in Hindenburg that she had been meaning to try for a year. She ordered wrong, and he talked her into sharing plates, and it was better. They argued, mildly, about a Supreme Court decision that had come down the previous week, and she was right and he conceded it, and then made a point that made her reconsider part of what she'd said, which was its own thing. He drove her home. Outside her building on Bronson Avenue, she didn't get out right away. "I need you to understand something," she said. "Okay, I don't do this," she said. "I'm not built for this. I've watched people wreck themselves over this, and I decided a long time ago that I wasn't going to." "I know," he said. "You know?" Francine told me, he said. "Not the specifics. Just that you've had walls up for as long as anyone here can remember." He paused. "I'm not asking you to tear anything down. I'm just asking to be in the same room as you sometimes." She looked at him. He was serious. He wasn't performing patience. He just seemed to actually have it. "Okay," she said. "One room at a time." He nodded. "One room at a time." She went upstairs and called her mother. "A man," her mother said, and Zara could hear her sitting up straighter. It's not. I'm just telling you." "What's his name?" Cal, her mother repeated, tasting it. "Tell me." So she did. More than she meant to. Her mother listened without interrupting, which was unusual, and when Zara finally ran out of words, there was a silence, and then her mother said, "You sound different." "I sound the same. You sound like someone who's considering something." Zara was quiet for a moment. "Maybe." "That's enough," her mother said. "That's plenty. Don't overthink it." Easy for her to say. But February came and March came, and somewhere in there it became a real thing without Zara making a definitive decision about it. They had dinner most weeks. She met his sister when Marguerite came to Ottawa for work, and the three of them had brunch on a Sunday morning, and Marguerite looked at Zara across the table and said, "He talks about you constantly, just so you know." And Cal said, "Marguerite," and Zara laughed, actually laughed, which surprised her. He was good. That was the part she kept bumping into. He was a genuinely good person. He wasn't performing anything. He didn't have a version of himself he was managing, and a different version underneath. He was the same at dinner and at work, and she was learning, in the early morning when he had just woken up and hadn't said anything yet. He was just himself, reliably. And she had underestimated how disarming that would be. The thing that almost ended it started in April. His name was on a list of prospective bidders for a contract that intersected with a file Zara had been running for 18 months. The Halcourt case. It was complicated real estate litigation involving a development company she had been representing since before Cal arrived at the firm. When the discovery documents came through in April, there was a name on a subsidiary structure she had never seen before. Caldwell Holdings. She spent an evening with a corporate registry database, which was not how she had planned to spend her Tuesday, and by midnight she had confirmed that Caldwell Holdings was a numbered company with Callaway Reed listed as a director. She sat very still for a while. In the morning she went to see him. She closed the door. "Caldwell Holdings," she said. He looked at her. She watched his face and saw the moment he understood. "I should have told you," he said. "Yes, it's a legacy holding from my father's estate. I haven't been active in it for years. It shouldn't have." He stopped. "It shouldn't have appeared on that document. I didn't know it was connected." That's not the point, she said. I know. The point is that I have been running that file for 18 months, and you have been my supervising partner, and there was a potential conflict, and you didn't tell me. I didn't know about the connection until last week, he said. I found it the same way you did. I was figuring out how to bring it to you. You had a week. I know. He was very still. You're right. I should have come to you immediately. I didn't handle it the way I should have. She didn't say anything. What do you need from me? He asked. I need you to recuse yourself from the Halcourt file, and I need us to disclose the conflict to the managing partner today. Done, he said. And she stopped, recalibrated. I need to think. She walked out. She drove home at lunch, which she never did, and she sat in her apartment and thought about what she was actually feeling, which was not what she would have expected to feel. She wasn't angry about the conflict, not really. She understood how it had happened. What she was feeling was something older and more familiar. The floor shifting, the thing she had always known would happen when she let someone close. The discovery that she had given someone the ability to hurt her. That was the real thing. That was what she was actually sitting with. Her mother called at 7 like she always did on Wednesdays. Zara answered. Something happened, her mother said immediately. Do I sound that different? You sound like your father just pulled out of the driveway. A pause. Tell me, she told her, not all of it. The parts she could say out loud. When she finished, her mother was quiet for a moment. Baby, her mother said. Did he lie to you? Zara thought about it honestly. No. Did he make a mistake? Yes. Did he own it? She thought about his face across the desk. The way he had said done before she even finished the sentence. Yes. Then what are you running from? Zara closed her eyes. I don't know. Yes, you do, her mother said. You're running from the part where you have to trust someone, but Zara. She paused. You can't build a life alone and call it freedom forever. At some point, it's just alone. Zara didn't answer. Think about it, her mother said, and let her go. She thought about it for 3 days. On the 4th day, she went to Cal's office. The managing partner had already been informed, and the conflict had been documented and assigned to another partner. The firm had handled it cleanly. Cal was at his desk when she walked in. He looked up and she could see he had been waiting to see which version of this conversation she was coming in to have. I want to say something, she said. All right, I think I overreacted. Not about the professional piece, that needed to happen exactly the way it happened, but personally. She steadied herself. You made a mistake in timing. I've made plenty. I don't know why I expected you to be error-proof when I'm not. He was very quiet. I'm not good at this, she said. I want you to know that going in. I'm working on it. I know, he said. So okay, she said. Okay, he said. That should have been it. She told herself it was. They had gotten through something hard and come out the other side, and that was the story. What happened in September was not part of any story she had written for herself. She was having lunch with Francine on a Friday when Francine put down her fork and said, I need to tell you something and I want you to hear me out before you say anything. Zara set down her fork too. There's talk, Francine said. Not from me, I want to be clear about that. But Rideau's daughter is coming onto the board in November, and she's been asking questions about the culture of the firm. And someone gave her a version of the Halcourt conflict that makes it look like Cal used his relationship with you to bury a disclosure issue. Zara kept her face still. That's not what happened. I know that. The conflict was disclosed immediately. It's documented. I know. Francine looked at her carefully. But the version going around paints you as compromised. That someone as good as you would have caught this in week 1 if you hadn't been personally involved. Zara sat with that for a moment. Who's running this? She said. Francine hesitated. There's a junior associate, Jocelyn Pruitt. She was passed over for the Mercer file when Cal gave it to you. She's been quiet about it until now. Zara thought about what to do. She thought about it for approximately 45 seconds. I need to see the original disclosure documents, she said, and the timeline on the Halcourt discovery. She stood up. I'm going to show them exactly what happened. She spent that weekend building a clean record of the entire Halcourt file. Every correspondence, every date, every decision. By Sunday night, she had a document that was airtight and that demonstrated without ambiguity that the conflict had been identified and disclosed at the first opportunity, and that her representation of her client had been entirely independent. She brought it to the managing partner first thing Monday morning, before anyone else arrived. She walked him through it without emotion, like she was presenting a legal argument, because that's what it was. He read it carefully. He asked 2 questions. He nodded. This is thorough, he said. I know, she said. She also, separately, asked to speak to Jocelyn Pruitt, not to confront her. She asked for a meeting and she sat across from a young woman who was clearly braced for something hostile and said, "I'm not here to make your life difficult. I want to talk about the Mercer file." Jocelyn looked at her warily. "You were passed over for it," Zara said. "I understand that was frustrating. If you felt the decision was unfair, there are proper channels for that." She paused. "What isn't appropriate is going outside the firm with a version of events that doesn't match the record. Not because of what it does to me. Because of what it tells people about your integrity." Jocelyn was quiet for a long moment. "I was angry," she finally said. "I know, you're allowed to be." Zara looked at her evenly. "Channel it differently." She wasn't sure anything had landed. She walked out and let it go. What she didn't know until 2 weeks later was that Jocelyn had gone to the managing partner herself and clarified that the version of events she had shared had been incomplete and influenced by personal frustration. She had done it unprompted. Zara found out from Francine, who told her with the air of someone delivering news they found profoundly satisfying. "What did you say to her?" Francine asked. "I told her the truth," Zara said. The night Zara found out the matter had been fully resolved, she called her mother. "It's done," she said. "And Cal?" her mother asked. "He didn't do anything," Zara said. "He didn't interfere, he trusted me to handle it." There was a warm silence. "Oh, I like him," her mother said. "I know," said Zara. She was quiet for a moment. "Mom," she said, "I think I want you to meet him." She heard her mother inhale sharply, just briefly, the way she did when she was trying not to make it into a whole production. Her mother said, very carefully, "Christmas," Zara said. "I think Christmas." There were 2 full seconds of silence. "I'm making jerk chicken," her mother said. "Don't tell me not to." "I'm making the whole thing." "I wasn't going to tell you not to." "I'm cleaning the good room." "Mom, I'm just saying." Zara laughed, and it came out easier than it used to, the way things do when you've stopped bracing against them. She had spent a very long time certain that the best protection was distance, that the walls her mother criticized were the same thing as wisdom, and maybe some of that was still true. Maybe you didn't tear down every wall at once. Maybe you just slowly opened a door. One room at a time, she thought, and it made her smile. She drove to Kingston in December through that particular kind of Ontario winter that is more gray than white, the highway flat and bare and familiar. Cal was in the passenger seat with his coat folded on his lap, asking questions about Kingston the way he asked questions about everything. Like he actually wanted to know the answers. When they pulled up to the house on Midland Avenue, the porch light was already on. Her mother opened the door before they reached the front step. She had the expression of a woman who had been waiting for this specific moment for approximately a decade and was working very hard not to show it. "You must be Cal," she said, holding the door open. "Come in out of the cold." He stepped inside and said, "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Osi-Mensah. Something smells incredible." Her mother looked at Zara over Cal's shoulder. It was a very quick look, it said everything. Zara followed them inside and closed the door against the cold, and felt, for the first time in longer than she could name, like she was exactly where she was supposed to be.